The Unified Species Academy was the largest space station ever built. It floated in the darkness between three star systems, far from any planet or sun. The station was home to thousands of young cadets from hundreds of different alien species. They came here to learn, to train, and to become the leaders of tomorrow's galaxy. Park sat alone near the big window in the observation deck. He was 19 years old with black hair and quiet dark eyes. In his hands he held a small leather book and an old metal pen. The pen was nothing special to look at. It was just steel, a little heavy with a clip on the side. But it was the most important thing he owned. His grandmother had given it to him the day he left Earth. "Write everything down," she had told him. "Remember where you came from." So every night, wrote in his journal. He wrote about his classes. He wrote about the strange foods in the cafeteria. He wrote about how lonely it felt to be the only human in the entire academy. The other cadets did not talk to him. They did not sit near him. When he walked through the halls, they moved to the other side. At first thought they were being mean, but then he learned the truth. They were not being cruel. They were afraid. Came from Earth, and Earth was classified as a Category 7. To understand what this meant, you had to understand how different Earth was from other planets. Most species in the galaxy evolved on gentle worlds, worlds with low gravity, calm weather, and peaceful ecosystems. They, for example, came from a planet where the biggest predator was the size of a small dog. Their bones were hollow and light. A fall from a chair could kill them. Earth was not like that. On Earth, the gravity was strong enough to crush the bones of most alien species. The air contained a gas called oxygen, which was actually a slow poison that caused rust and fire. The planet had earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, and floods. It had seasons that could freeze water solid or boil it into steam. And worst of all, it had life. Earth life was violent. Everything on that planet had evolved to kill or be killed. There were animals with teeth that could bite through bone. There were insects that drank blood. There were plants that ate meat. And at the top of this nightmare world stood humans. Humans were not the fastest animals on Earth. They were not the strongest. They did not have claws or fangs or armor, but they had something else. They had endurance. They had intelligence. And they had a strange, terrible thing called persistence hunting. In the old days, humans would chase their prey for hours, days even. They would follow an animal until it collapsed from exhaustion and heat. Then they would kill it with rocks and sticks. No other species in the galaxy hunted like this. It was terrifying. The other cadets had learned about humans in their classes. They had seen the videos. They knew that humans could survive injuries that would kill any other species. They knew that humans had hunted their own planet's apex predators to extinction, just for fun. They knew that human bones were dense and heavy, that human muscles were strong, that human reflexes were fast. So they stayed away from Park, not because they hated him, but because every instinct in their bodies told them he was dangerous. Understood this. He tried not to take it personally, but it was still lonely. The door to the observation deck opened with a soft hiss. Looked up from his journal to see instructor walking toward him. Was a species with 4 arms and large compound eyes. His exoskeleton was dark green, and he moved with careful, clicking steps. "Cadet Park," said. His voice was a series of clicks and buzzes that the translator in his ear turned into words. "I have your assignment for tomorrow's simulation." Closed his journal and stood up. Even this simple movement made step back slightly. Humans moved differently than other species. Every step was deliberate. Every glance was assessing. To prey species, it looked like a predator preparing to strike. "What's the assignment?" asked. He kept his voice soft. He had learned to do this. Loud noises scared the other cadets. "You have been placed in Squad 7 for the diplomatic simulation. You will report to Captain at 0800. Raised an eyebrow. "The Captain," she requested a human. Mandibles clicked nervously. She requested the best. Your tactical scores are unprecedented, Cadet Park, the highest in Academy history. Captain believes you will help her squad succeed. Thought about this. They were one of the most fragile species in the galaxy. Their bones were like glass. A firm handshake could break their fingers, and yet Captain had asked for a human on her team. "I'll be there," said. Nodded quickly and left. Sat back down and opened his journal again. He wrote about the assignment. He wrote about how strange it felt to be wanted somewhere, even if it was just for his unprecedented tactical scores. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, beyond the safe walls of the Academy, the galaxy was full of dangers, pirates and wars and ancient enemies. His grandmother had told him about them. "The universe is not kind," she had said, "but neither are we. Remember that. When things get bad, remember what you are. Remember what we survived to become." Looked at his pen. Such a simple thing, just metal and ink. But his grandmother had used a pen just like this one to write letters during the war. His great-grandfather had carried one in his pocket when he fled the North. For his family, pens were not just tools, they were symbols of survival. Tomorrow would be a simple simulation, a training exercise, nothing to worry about. Put away his journal and walked back to his quarters, unaware that tomorrow would change everything. Unaware that before the day was over, he would discover exactly what it meant to be human. And the galaxy would learn to fear his grandmother's pen. The simulation chamber was located in the lower levels of the Academy. It was a massive room that could be changed to look like anything. Today, it looked like a merchant ship. There were metal walls, flickering lights, and the smell of recycled air. It felt real. That was the point. Squad 7 gathered near the entrance, stood a little apart from the others, watching them. He had learned their names from the briefing files. Captain was easy to spot. She was covered in beautiful silver feathers that caught the light when she moved. Her eyes were large and golden, and her voice was soft like music. She was small, barely reaching shoulder, but she carried herself with confidence. She was the leader, and everyone knew it. Was the largest member of the squad. He was a species that looked like walking trees. His skin was rough brown bark, and his arms were thick as logs. When he moved, you could hear his joints creaking like branches in the wind. They were strong but slow. They came from a peaceful forest world where nothing ever hunted them. Was an amphibian species with blue-green scales and large, wet eyes. His skin was always damp, and he breathed through it as well as through his mouth. They were swimmers, not fighters. They were known for their intelligence and their gentle nature. The last two members were a small mammalian species with 4 arms and soft brown fur. Was the technician, quick and clever with machines. Was the medic, quiet and careful. Both of them were about half's height. Approached with a friendly smile. Her feathers fluffed up slightly, which the translator told him was a sign of nervousness. "Cadet Park," she said, "thank you for joining our squad. I have heard much about you." "Good things, I hope," said. He kept his voice soft. His feathers relaxed a little. "Very good things. Your tactical scores are impressive. I believe you can help us win this simulation." "I'll do my best, Captain." The simulation was supposed to be simple. They would enter the fake merchant ship and negotiate a trade deal between 2 computer-controlled factions. It was a test of diplomacy, not combat. Would do most of the talking. His job was to watch for tricks and traps. The squad entered the ship. The door closed behind them with a heavy clang. Inside, the corridor stretched forward into darkness. Emergency lights glowed red along the floor. "That's strange," said. Her 4 hands moved nervously. "The lights should be on. The simulation shouldn't start like this." Looked around, her golden eyes narrowing. "Perhaps it's part of the test. Stay alert, everyone." They moved forward slowly, walked at the back of the group, his eyes scanning every shadow. Something felt wrong. He could not explain it, but his body knew. The hair on his arms was standing up. His heart was beating faster. His grandmother had told him about this feeling. She called it the old instinct, the part of the human brain that remembered being prey, that remembered the tigers and wolves and snakes. When that part of your brain woke up, you listened to it. "Stop," said quietly. The squad stopped, turned to look at him. "What is it?" "Something is wrong. This doesn't feel like a simulation." Made a sound like rustling leaves. "You are being paranoid, human. The Academy would not put us in danger." A sound echoed through the corridor. It was somewhere between a scream and a roar. It came from deep inside the ship, bouncing off the metal walls until it surrounded them. His blood went cold. He had heard that sound before, not in person but in recordings, in the xenobiology classes he had taken, in the warnings about species that should never be approached. He whispered. His feathers went flat against her body. "That is impossible. They are quarantined. They cannot be here." "They are here," said. His hand moved to his pocket where his grandmother's pen rested against his leg. "Everyone get behind me. Now." "What are you?" started to say. The wall exploded. Metal screamed as it tore apart. 3 shapes came through the hole, moving faster than anything that big should move. Each one was 3 meters tall, covered in black armor that grew from their own bodies. They had 4 arms, each ending in claws that looked like curved swords. Their heads were flat and wide, with too many eyes and mouths full of teeth. Though the galaxy's most feared predators, responsible for killing entire civilizations, for eating species into extinction, they did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They fed. Was brave, he was also stupid. The charged at the nearest, his wooden fists swinging. The caught him with one arm and threw him across the corridor. Hit the wall with a crack that sounded like breaking wood. He did not get up. Tried to run. A claw caught his leg and cut deep. The screamed and fell. Blue blood sprayed across the floor. And were frozen in terror. Their small bodies were shaking so hard they could not move. And beautiful Silver stood in the open with nowhere to hide. The lead turned toward her, its many eyes focused on the small feathered creature. Its mouth opened, showing rows and rows of teeth. A sound came from its throat. It might have been laughter. Moved. He did not think. He did not plan. His body simply acted. 10,000 years of evolution took over. The part of him that had survived Earth, that had hunted and been hunted, that had killed predators with rocks and sticks, that part of him woke up. He grabbed and threw her behind a metal console. She was light as paper in his hands. Then he turned to face The creature looked at him, this small, soft thing, this human. It was the smallest prey in the room, the weakest, the most pathetic. The lunged. And Park, grandson of a woman who hunted boars with a knife, reached for his grandmother's pen. Time slowed down. This was not just a feeling, it was real. When humans faced death, their brains changed the way they saw the world. Adrenaline flooded the blood. The heart beat 3 times faster. The eyes opened wider. The brain processed information so quickly that everything seemed to move in slow motion. Scientists called this the fight-or-flight response, but they were wrong about the name. For most species, it was just the flight response. When danger came, they ran. That was how prey survived. Humans were different. Humans did not run. Or rather, they could run, but they could also do something else. Something no other species could do. They could choose to fight. They could look at a predator twice their size and decide in that moment that running was not an option. Park made that choice. The claw came down like a falling blade. It was fast, faster than any human should be able to dodge, but did not try to dodge. Instead, he stepped forward. He moved into the attack, inside the reach of those terrible claws, exactly where no prey should ever go. The claw whistled past his ear. He felt the wind of it, felt it cut a few strands of his black hair, but it did not touch him. He was inside the creature's guard now, close enough to smell it, close enough to see the surprise in its many eyes. No prey had ever done this before. No prey had ever been this stupid, this brave. His hand came up. In his fingers was his grandmother's pen, just a simple steel cylinder, just a writing tool. But in a human's hand, anything could become a weapon. He drove the pen into the Sci. The steel tip punched through the soft tissue, pushed harder, using all the strength of muscles that had evolved under Earth's crushing gravity. The pen went deep, deeper. He angled it upward, toward where his xenobiology classes had told him that kept their brain. The creature screamed. It was the worst sound it ever heard, a shriek of pain and rage and disbelief. The sound shattered equipment across the room. Glass broke, metal vibrated, covered her ears and curled into a ball. The thrash trying to throw off. It swung its arms wildly. One claw caught his shoulder and cut through his uniform, drawing blood, but did not let go. His grip was iron. His grip was earth. He twisted the pen. The screaming stopped. This body went stiff for one moment. Then it collapsed, falling forward like a tree, jumped back just in time to avoid being crushed. The creature hit the floor with a boom that shook the whole corridor. Silence. Pulled the pen from the creature's skull. Black blood dripped from the steel tip. His shoulder burned with pain, but he ignored it. Pain was just information. His grandmother had taught him that. Pain told you that you were hurt. It did not tell you to stop. He turned to face the other two. They had stopped moving. They stood frozen in the corridor, their many eyes fixed on their fallen brother. In their entire history as a species, nothing had ever done this. Nothing had ever killed us so quickly, so easily, with such a small weapon. Looked back at them. His eyes had changed. They were no longer the quiet, gentle eyes of a cadet. They were older now. Harder. They were the eyes of a creature that had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain by being more violent, more persistent, and more creative than anything else on that nightmare planet. "Come on," he said. His voice was calm, almost quiet. "I'm not finished." The second attacked. It came at him with all four arms, claws slashing in a pattern that had killed thousands of creatures before. It was a technique that had never failed, a technique that turned prey into pieces. Dropped low, his body folded under the attacks like water. The claws passed over him, cutting only air. In the same motion, he grabbed a piece of broken metal from the destroyed wall. It was sharp and jagged, torn from the ship's hull. He cut this leg. The blade went through the joint where the armor was weakest. Black blood sprayed. The creature stumbled, losing its balance for just a moment, just long enough. Rose like a wave. He came up inside the creature's guard again, just like before. His left hand grabbed one of its arms and pulled. His right hand, still holding the pen, found the soft spot under its jaw, the place where the armor did not reach, the place where the flesh was weak. He pushed the pen through. The steel tip entered the brain. The died before it hit the ground. 2 down. 30 seconds had passed since the first attack. Stood over the second body, breathing hard. Blood ran down his arm from the wound on his shoulder. His uniform was torn. His hands were covered in black blood. Behind him, watched with wide golden eyes. She had seen death before. She had seen violence in simulations and recordings, but she had never seen anything like this. This was not fighting. This was something else, something primal, something terrifying. The third looked at. Then it looked at its two dead brothers. Then it did something that no had done in 10,000 years. It ran. It turned and fled down the corridor, its four legs carrying it faster than any human could follow. It was heading for the escape pods. It was going to get away. It was going to tell others what had happened here. Watched it go for exactly 1 second. Then he started running. Because humans did not just fight. Humans also chased. Humans hunted. And once a human decided that something was prey, there was nowhere in the galaxy it could hide. The hunt had begun. The ran through the dark corridors of the ship. Its four legs moved in a blur, carrying it faster than any creature in the galaxy. They were built for speed, built for hunting, built for killing. But now, for the first time in its life, this was the one being hunted. Behind it, somewhere in the darkness, came the human. They could hear him, footsteps steady, patient, not fast but never stopping. The human was not trying to catch up. The human was waiting, waiting for it to get tired, waiting for it to make a mistake. This was persistence hunting, the ancient method that humans had used to conquer there. They did not need to be faster than their prey. They just needed to keep going, to never stop, to follow and follow until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They had never experienced this before. It had always been the hunter. It had always been the one chasing. Now, every time it stopped to rest, it could hear those footsteps getting closer, closer, never stopping. It turned a corner and pressed itself against the wall. Its four arms were raised, claws ready. If the human came around that corner, it would strike. It would kill. It would survive. Seconds passed, minutes. The footsteps stopped. Silence. The waited, its many eyes watched the corner, its hearts beat fast. Where was the human? Where had he gone? Something cold touched its leg. The looked down. The human was on the floor, having crawled along the bottom of the wall in the shadows where the emergency lights did not reach. His eyes looked up at this face. His hand held the pen. Before they could react, the pen stabbed into the joint of its knee. The creature screamed and swung its claws, but was already moving. He rolled away, came up on his feet, and backed down the corridor. Blood ran from a new cut on his cheek, but he was smiling. "You're scared," he said. "I can smell it on you." The limped after him, one leg damaged. "What are you?" it hissed. The words came out broken and strange. The rarely spoke to prey. There was never any point. "I'm human," said. He kept backing away, leading the creature deeper into the ship. "From Earth, have you heard of it?" The said, "We know of it. We chose not to go there." Smart choice. The corridor opened into a larger room. It was some kind of cargo hold, filled with metal boxes and equipment. Moved between the boxes, keeping distance from the. His eyes scanned the room, looking for advantages. The followed, limping but still dangerous. "You cannot win, human. I am an apex predator. My species has killed civilizations." "So has mine," said quietly. He stopped moving. They stopped too, confused. Why had the prey stopped running? "My grandmother told me stories," continued. His voice was calm, almost sad. "About the animals that used to live on Earth. The tigers, the wolves, the great bears, beautiful creatures, powerful creatures. They ruled the world for millions of years." He looked at them with those dark, ancient eyes. "We killed them all, not because we had to, not because they threatened us. We killed them because we could, because humans do not like competition. We do not share the top of the food chain." They felt something it had never felt before. Fear, real fear, not the fear of being hurt, not the fear of pain, the fear of understanding what it faced. "You are not prey," they whispered. "No," agreed, "I am not." He moved. They tried to fight. It really did. It used every technique it had learned over centuries of hunting, every claw strike, every body slam, every dirty trick its species had developed. None of it worked. Was everywhere and nowhere. He ducked under attacks. He slipped around claws. He used the boxes and equipment as shields and weapons. When they tried to pin him, he broke free with strength that seemed impossible for his small body. When it tried to bite him, he punished it with quick strikes to its eyes and joints. He was not faster than he was not stronger, but he was smarter. He was more adaptable, and he absolutely refused to die. The fight lasted 3 minutes. In those 3 minutes took 4 more wounds, cuts on his arms, a deep gash on his side, a claw mark across his back that would leave a scar forever. But they took more. Finally, the creature collapsed against a cargo box. Black blood pooled beneath it. 3 of its 4 arms hung useless. One of its eyes was gone, destroyed by the same pen that had killed its brothers. It looked up at the human standing over it. "Please," it said. The word was strange in its mouth. It had never begged before. Its species had never needed to beg. "Please, what are you?" Knelt down so they were at eye level. His face was covered in blood, both black and red. His uniform was in shreds. He looked like he had crawled out of a war. But his eyes were calm, almost gentle. "I am what happens when prey refuses to be prey," he said. "I am what happens when the weak become strong. I am 10,000 years of evolution. I am Earth." He raised his grandmother's pen. "And I am the last thing you will ever see." The pen came down. And then there was silence. Stood alone in the cargo hold, surrounded by boxes and blood. His body shook with exhaustion. His wounds screamed for attention, but he was alive. He cleaned his grandmother's pen on his torn uniform and put it back in his pocket. Then he started walking back to his squad. The rescue ships arrived 3 hours later. By then had carried back to the main corridor. Though was badly hurt, his bark skin cracked in dozens of places, but he was alive. His leg had been wrapped with strips of his uniform, the bleeding stopped, and had recovered from their shock and were helping tend to the wounded. When the rescue teams found them, they did not understand what they were seeing at first. 6 cadets, most of them injured, sitting in a corridor next to 2 dead. The most dangerous predators in the galaxy, killed by children. Then they found the 3rd body in the cargo hold. Then they looked at Park. The human sat against the wall, covered in blood both black and red. His wounds had been crudely bandaged. In his hand, he held a small metal pen, which he was cleaning over and over with a piece of cloth. His eyes stared at nothing. The rescue team leader, a large reptilian called Commander, approached him carefully. "Cadet Park, can you hear me?" Looked up, his eyes focused slowly. "Yes, Commander." "You killed these, all 3 of them?" "Yes." "How?" Looked at the pen in his hand. Such a simple thing, steel and ink, his grandmother's gift. "I did what I had to do," he said. The investigation took 2 weeks. Experts came from across the galaxy to study the scene. They interviewed every member of Squad 7 multiple times. They examined the bodies with scientific instruments. They watched the security recordings over and over. What they found was terrifying. They had been smuggled onto the Academy station by a separatist faction. They were supposed to be a test. The separatists wanted to see if they could kill the Academy's leadership. If the test succeeded, they would release more during the next major ceremony. They would assassinate admirals, senators, and ambassadors. They would start a war. The simulation chamber had been chosen because it was isolated, because the walls blocked communication, because no one would hear the screaming. They had not expected a human. Sat in the medical bay while doctors from 6 different species tried to treat his wounds. Human biology was strange to them. The dense bones, the fast-healing flesh, the blood that carried so much oxygen it was almost poison. "You should be dead," one doctor told him. "These wounds would kill any other species." "Humans are hard to kill," said. Visited him every day. Her silver feathers were dull with worry and her golden eyes were red from crying. She blamed herself for what happened. She was the captain. She should have protected her squad. "You saved us," she told him. "You saved all of us. I do not know how to thank you." Shook his head. "I just did what my grandmother would have done." "Your grandmother must be a great warrior." Smiled for the first time since the attack. She was a teacher. She taught history at a small school in the mountains. But before that, when she was young, she lived in a village where wild boars came down from the hills. When the men were away, she protected the village by herself, with a knife. His feathers fluffed up in amazement. She fought wild animals alone. She said it was no different from teaching middle school students. Both required patience and a willingness to use force when necessary. They laughed together. It felt good to laugh. The Academy Council met to discuss what to do. Some members wanted to give a medal, others wanted to send him home. A few, mostly from prey species, wanted him locked up. They had seen the recordings. They had seen what a single human could do when pushed to the limit. It scared them. In the end, they compromised. Would stay at the Academy. He would receive no medal and no punishment. But his file would be updated with a new classification. Apex species, the council announced, not just apex. It was a small change, just one word, but it meant everything. It meant that humans were not just survivors, they were predators, the top of a very dangerous food chain. Across the galaxy, other species took notice. The collective received the report of what had happened. For the first time in their history, they added a planet to their Do Not Hunt list. Earth. The planet where prey became predator. The planet where soft, small creatures had climbed to the top by being more violent, more stubborn, and more creative than anything else. The planet that produced Park. On his last night in the medical bay, took out his grandmother's pen and opened his journal. He had not written anything since before the attack. Now, he had so much to say. He wrote about the fear he had felt when they came through the wall. He wrote about the strange calm that had come over him during the fight. He wrote about how it felt to kill, and how he was not sure if he was proud or ashamed. He wrote about his grandmother, about how she had given him this pen and told him to remember where he came from. He understood now what she meant. She was not talking about Korea or Earth. She was talking about something deeper, something older. She was talking about what humans were, what they had always been, what they would always be. Survivors, fighters, predators. Closed his journal and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness of space, there were more dangers, more enemies, more monsters that thought humans were weak, that thought humans were prey. They were wrong. He put the pen back in his pocket and smiled. His grandmother would have been proud.